Jake Harrison stood in the huge meeting room of the Galactic Council. The room was bigger than 10 football fields put together. Tall crystal beings from the planet Zephyr looked down at him with their glowing blue eyes. Jake kept his face calm, but inside he felt angry and tired. For months, he had been trying to make these aliens understand something very important. The room buzzed with worried voices. Beings from 50 different worlds spoke in their own languages through small devices that translated everything. Bad news kept coming in from the outer space territories. The evil Krillian Empire had attacked again. This time they hit the peaceful mining colonies in Sector 7. Their terrible quantum weapons turned whole planets into dead rocks floating in space. Jake looked at the big screen showing the damage. 3 mining worlds were gone. Not just the people living there, but everything. Trees, animals, oceans, and mountains, all turned to dust and radiation. The families who lived there had been miners and farmers. They never hurt anyone. Now they were all dead. Admiral Lisa Carter sat next to Jake. She was Earth's top military person at the council. Lisa had short brown hair and always wore her blue uniform with pride. She looked at the numbers on her tablet computer. Her face went pale as she read the reports. 3 billion people died in the last 6 months, Lisa whispered to Jake. This has to stop. The Krillian Empire was not the only problem. The Thoraxian Collective was fighting the Zephyrians over mining rights in the Omega sector. The Vorthan Republic was at war with the Crystal Alliance over old insults that happened 1,000 years ago. Everyone was fighting someone. Dr. Paul Bennett stood up to speak. He was a smart man who studied how different alien races behaved. Paul had spent 5 years traveling to different worlds, watching how they fought wars. He wore thick glasses and always carried a bag full of books and computers. "Honored council members," Paul said in a loud, clear voice, "I have studied every war in this galaxy for the past century. Every single one has the same problem. You all fight to win, but you never fight to end war itself." The crystal beings from Zephyr made angry clicking sounds. The furry cat-like Vorthans hissed. The robot-like Thoraxians just stared with their red metal eyes. They all thought Paul was being rude. "Humans are young and stupid," said Zexnalar, the chief Zephyrian speaker. His voice sounded like glass breaking. "You have been in space for only 300 of your years. We have fought honorable wars for 10,000 years. Do not tell us how to solve our problems." Jake stepped forward. He was not as smart as Paul or as high-ranking as Lisa, but he had something the others did not. He understood people. All kinds of people, even alien people. "With respect, Zexnalar," Jake said, "your honorable wars are killing everyone. Look at the numbers. In 10,000 years of honorable fighting, how many have died? How many worlds are empty now because of these wars?" The big screen changed to show a star map. Red dots marked dead worlds, planets where wars had killed everything living. There were thousands of red dots, maybe tens of thousands. Zexnalar made a sound like wind blowing through broken glass. "Death in battle is honorable. Our warriors choose to fight. It is our way." "What about the miners?" Jake asked. "What about the farmers and children? Did they choose to die too?" The room went quiet. Even the translation machine stopped humming for a moment. Lisa stood up and walked to the big screen. She touched it, and the image changed. Now it showed Earth during the Third World War back in 2089. Cities were burning. Millions of people were running away from the fighting. "This was my world 60 years ago," Lisa said. "We were killing each other with nuclear weapons. Poison gas, robot soldiers. We thought we were being honorable too. We thought dying in battle meant something special." She touched the screen again. Now it showed Earth today. Green forests covered the land. Clean cities reached up to the sky. Children played in parks while their parents worked in laboratories and schools. "Then we learned something," Lisa continued. "Fighting to win a war is not the same as fighting to end war. We humans found a different way. The aliens looked interested, but suspicious. The Thoraxian representative, a tall robot called Unit Prime 457, spoke in a voice like grinding metal. "What way is this? How does one end war without winning war?" Jake smiled. This was the moment he had been waiting for. We change what war means. We change how people think about fighting. We change the rules so completely that the old kind of war becomes impossible. Dr. Bennett opened his bag and pulled out a small device. It looked like a metal ball with wires coming out of it. The device hummed quietly and glowed with soft white light. "This is a prototype," Paul said. "We call it a neural warfare inhibitor. It does not destroy ships or break weapons. It does something much more important. It changes how the brain works when thinking about violence." The aliens moved away from the device. Some of them looked scared. Others looked angry. "You want to control our minds?" Zexnalar asked. His crystal body flashed red with anger. "Not control," Jake said quickly. "Help. The device makes it very hard for people to want to kill other people. They can still fight, but they cannot enjoy hurting others. They cannot see other beings as enemies that deserve to die." Unit Prime 457's red eyes flickered. "This is against the laws of nature. Fighting is how species grow strong. You would make us all weak." "No," Lisa said firmly. "We would make you all smart. Look around this room. 50 different species, all here to solve problems with words, instead of weapons. When you are not fighting each other, what do you create? What do you discover? What do you build?" The truth was clear to everyone in the room. When the different species worked together, they did amazing things. They built cities in space. They cured diseases that had killed millions. They explored new stars and found new forms of life. But these peaceful times never lasted long. Someone always started a new war. Jake looked around the room at all the different faces. Crystal beings, furry creatures, robots, and others that had no names in human language. They were all intelligent. They all had families and dreams. But they were all trapped in an old way of thinking that said violence was sometimes necessary. "The E.A. Krillian Empire will attack the homeworlds next week," Jake said quietly. "Our spy ships have seen their fleet moving. 100,000 warships with quantum disruptors. If they succeed, 20 billion people will die, including many of you in this room." The silence that followed was heavy and frightening. Everyone knew Jake was telling the truth. The Krillians had been building up their forces for months. Soon, they would launch the biggest attack in galactic history. "We can stop them," Jake said. "Not by fighting them, not by destroying their ships, but by making it impossible for them to want to hurt anyone. The choice is yours." The aliens looked at each other. Some whispered in their own languages. Others just stared at the small device in Paul's hands. The device that could change everything. Outside the windows of the council chamber, the stars looked peaceful and beautiful. But Jake knew that in the darkness between those stars, warships were moving, weapons were charging, soldiers were preparing to kill and die for causes they barely understood. Time was running out. Soon the galaxy would have to choose between the old way of endless war and a new way that no one fully understood. Jake hoped they would choose wisely. The future of every living being in the galaxy depended on what happened in the next few hours. 6 months after the war began, Queen General Zixara sat in a human prison cell on Earth, staring at the walls that held her captive. The mighty Krathan Empire had surrendered completely after losing battle after battle to human forces. She could barely believe how quickly everything had changed. A guard opened her cell door. "The human leaders want to speak with you," he said politely. Zixara was taken to a meeting room where General Stone and Dr. Amy Foster were waiting for her. Despite being prisoners, the humans had treated her with respect and dignity. This confused her even more than their military victories. "Why did you attack us?" General Stone asked her directly. Zixara looked at the two humans with her large compound eyes. "We thought you were weak. Our intelligence said you had no military, no weapons. No way to fight back. We believed we could take your worlds easily, Doctor. Amy Foster leaned forward. But you were wrong about us. The question is, why did you want to attack peaceful neighbors in the first place? Because that is what the Krathan Empire does, Zixara replied. We conquer and expand. It is our nature. General Stone nodded. Well, your empire's conquering days are over, but we're willing to offer you a choice. You can learn to live peacefully with other species, or you can remain prisoners forever. Zixara was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. I underestimated not just your weapons, but your strategic thinking. You planned this deception for centuries. You are better warriors than my people ever were. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, High Commander Vexthor was meeting with the reformed Galactic Council on the neutral world of Harmony Station. The old council, which had been dominated by Zephyrian and Krathan interests, no longer existed. In its place was a new organization with very different rules. Admiral Jake Morrison, former captain of the transport ship New Horizon, now represented humanity as the head of the new Galactic Defense Force. He stood before the assembled alien delegates in his crisp military uniform, a symbol of how much had changed. The old system failed, Jake said to the assembled aliens. It allowed aggressive species to threaten peaceful ones while hiding behind bureaucracy and false neutrality. That system is finished. A Zephyrian delegate raised his hand. Admiral Morrison, what assurance do we have that humanity will not become the same kind of threat that the Krathan were? Jake looked at the delegate calmly. Because we've had the power to conquer the galaxy for 300 years, and we chose not to use it. We only revealed our true capabilities when someone tried to destroy us. That should tell you everything. You need to know about human intentions. Dr. Amy Foster, now serving as Earth's Secretary of Galactic Affairs, stood up to address the Council. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We want to protect it. But we will never again pretend to be helpless when we are not. Back on Earth, the truth about humanity's long deception was finally being told to the general population. President Wilson addressed the world in a historic broadcast that was transmitted to every human colony. My fellow humans, she began, for 3 centuries, we have lived in peace while maintaining the capability to defend ourselves if that peace was threatened. Today, I can reveal that this was not an accident. It was a carefully planned strategy created by our wisest ancestors. The President explained how the Great Peace had never really been about abandoning warfare, but about perfecting it. While humans appeared to focus on farming, art, and science, military researchers like the legendary Dr. Grace Murphy had been developing new theories of combat that incorporated lessons learned from studying alien civilizations. Paul Richardson watched the broadcast from his rebuilt colony on New Terra. The Krathan attack had damaged many buildings, but the colonists had rebuilt everything quickly. More importantly, they no longer had to hide their true capabilities. Carlos Santos had been promoted to Director of Planetary Defense. His orbital weapons platforms were now visible to anyone who looked up at the sky. The message was clear. New Terra would never again be a defensible target. It feels good not to have to pretend anymore, Carlos told Paul as they watched construction crews building the new defense headquarters. Paul nodded in agreement. 300 years of hiding was enough. Now our children can grow up knowing that their parents can protect them from anyone who tries to hurt them. Captain Susan Dale was preparing for humanity's first major exploration mission since the war. The USS Pioneer, the newest ship in the human fleet, was designed for peaceful exploration, but it carried enough firepower to handle any threat it might encounter. We're not going out there to conquer, she told her crew during their final briefing. We're going to explore, learn, and make friends. But if someone tries to hurt us or our allies, they'll discover why that's a very bad idea. Commander Lisa Chang, now serving as Dale's second-in-command, checked the ship's navigation systems. Captain, we have clearance for departure. The outer, Rim territories are waiting for us. The USS Pioneer launched from Earth's orbital shipyards, beginning humanity's expansion into previously unexplored regions of the galaxy. As they traveled through space, they carried with them the lesson that the galaxy had learned about humanity. Peace was not weakness, but strength under control. On the reformed world of the Krathan Empire, former Queen General Zixara was working with human advisors to rebuild her society. The Krathan were learning to use their natural organizational abilities for construction and exploration instead of conquest and destruction. "It is strange," Zixara told her human advisor, a former teacher named Betty Williams. "My people are happier now than they were when we were conquering other worlds." Betty smiled. "That's because you're building something instead of destroying it. Creation is more satisfying than destruction, even for warrior species like yours." High Commander Vexthor, now Premier Vexthor of the reformed Zephyrian Republic, met regularly with human leaders to coordinate the new galactic security system. The Zephyrians had undergone massive political changes, abandoning their old imperial structure in favor of a more democratic system based on the human model. "The humans taught us that true strength comes from defending others, not from dominating them," he explained to his parliament. "Our alliance with humanity has made us stronger than we ever were as an empire." General Stone, now retired for the second time in his life, sat on his ranch in Montana and watched the news reports about humanity's expanding role in galactic affairs. His communication device sat quietly on his desk, no longer needed for secret military purposes. A young reporter had come to interview him about the war and its aftermath. "General, do you think humanity will ever have to fight another war like this one?" Stone looked out at his peaceful ranch, then back at the reporter. "I hope not. But if we do, the galaxy will know from the start what they're dealing with. The age of underestimating humanity is over." Dr. Amy Foster published her final report on the war, documenting how humanity's 3-century deception had worked. The report became required reading at military academies across the galaxy, studied by species who wanted to understand how to achieve victory through patience and planning rather than aggression. Years later, when new alien species made first contact with the Galactic Federation, they all received the same briefing from their diplomatic services. The humans appear peaceful. They grow food, create art, and study science. They will welcome you as friends and treat you as family, never mistake this kindness for weakness, never threaten what they love. The last species that made this error learned too late that humanity's greatest strength is not their weapons, but their willingness to wait centuries for the right moment to use them. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not violent by nature, but they were warriors by choice. And when they made that choice, no force in the universe could stand against their combination of patience, planning, and determination. End. The vast reaches of space, human colonies continued their work of building, growing, learning, and living, while maintaining the eternal watchfulness that ensured the galaxy's peace would never again be threatened by those who mistook kindness for weakness. The age of humanity had begun, not through conquest, but through the revelation of who they had always been beneath their peaceful exterior. The galaxy was safer because of it, and every species, including humanity itself, was better for having learned the true meaning of strength. Ambassador Veltar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the graceful Dominion, as his fleet approached the Sol system. It had been 3 years since the Zephyrians had generously gifted the humans with technological artifacts. Now it was time for the routine follow-up visit to check on their progress and collect the expected gratitude. "How primitive these humans still are," remarked Sub-Commander Crixenol, studying the sensor readings. "Their ships look like metal boxes with engines attached." Veltar smiled with satisfaction. "As expected. The artifacts we provided should have given them some minor improvements, but nothing significant. They will be properly grateful for our continued guidance." The Zephyrian fleet consisted of 12 sleek vessels, their curved hulls gleaming silver against the black of space. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering that had remained unchanged for centuries. Why change perfection? Sir, detecting. An unknown vessel approaching our position, reported the sensor operator. Veltar looked at the main display with mild interest. One of their crewed patrol ships, no doubt. Put it on screen. What appeared on the display made Veltar's blood run cold. The approaching vessel was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was angular where Zephyrian ships were curved, dark where they were bright, and it moved with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. "That is not a human design," Crixnol whispered. "Incoming transmission from the unknown vessel," the communications officer announced. "Put it through," Veltar ordered, his confidence shaken. The display showed a human male in a military uniform. Veltar recognized the species but was surprised by the calm authority in the human's voice. "Ambassador Veltar, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Defiance. Welcome back to our solar system." "Captain Morrison," Veltar replied, trying to regain his composure. "We are pleased to see that humanity continues to thrive. That is an interesting vessel you command." "Thank you. We built it using some of the materials you so generously provided. We've made a few improvements." Veltar's eyes narrowed. The human was being far too confident for a member of a primitive species. "Improvements? I would be interested to see what your people have accomplished." "I'd be happy to demonstrate," Jake replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Without warning, the human ship simply vanished from their sensors. Veltar stared at the empty display in shock. "Where did it go?" he demanded. "Sir, it's directly above us," the sensor operator reported, his voice shaking. "Range, 50 meters. Veltar looked up through the bridge's transparent dome and saw the dark hull of the human ship hovering impossibly close. How had something that large moved so quickly and quietly? "That's impossible," Crixnol breathed. "Our sensors should have tracked any movement." The Defiance moved again, this time appearing directly in front of the Zephyrian flagship. Blue energy beams lanced out from hidden weapon ports, striking two of the escort vessels. The beams didn't destroy the ships, they surgically disabled their engines and weapon systems. "Your escort vessels are now defenseless," Captain Morrison's voice came over the communications system. "Their crews are unharmed, but their ships are dead in space." Veltar couldn't believe what he was seeing. Human weapons had just penetrated Zephyrian shields as if they didn't exist. "This is impossible. Human technology cannot—" "Human technology couldn't," Jake interrupted. "But we're very good at improving on existing designs. Would you like another demonstration?" Before Veltar could respond, the Defiance fired again. This time, the target was the flagship's weapon systems. Precise energy beams struck each weapon, disabling them without damaging anything else. "Your ship is now defenseless as well," Jake announced calmly. "Ambassador, I think we need to have a conversation. Please prepare to receive a boarding party." "You dare threaten a representative of the Zephyrian Empire?" Veltar sputtered with rage and fear. "I'm not threatening anyone. I'm simply extending an invitation. Though I should mention that if any of your remaining ships make hostile moves, they'll end up like the first two." Commander Alex Rivers led the boarding party onto the Zephyrian flagship. The alien crew watched in shock as humans in advanced combat suits moved through their corridors with confidence and purpose. These were not the primitive beings they had expected to find. Alex found Veltar in the ship's main conference room, surrounded by his senior staff. The ambassador looked furious, but also deeply frightened. "How is this possible?" Veltar demanded as Alex removed his helmet. "Your species should not possess such capabilities." "You're right," Alex replied, taking a seat across from the alien. "Diplomat. 3 years ago, we didn't. But you gave us quite an education when you left us your old ship parts. Those were worthless scraps, damaged beyond repair." Alex smiled. "That's what you thought. But humans have a talent for fixing broken things and making them work better than before. Your memory cores were particularly educational. Veltar's eyes widened with horror. The memory cores should have been wiped clean. Should have been, yes. But your people got sloppy. They contained star charts, technical specifications, tactical data, and most importantly, detailed information about your empire's weaknesses. Alex activated a portable display device, showing Zephyrian ship schematics with critical vulnerabilities highlighted in red. Single-point power failures, predictable fleet movements, weapon systems optimized for fighting primitive enemies, Alex listed. Your empire has been so dominant for so long that you forgot how to adapt and improve. What do you want? Veltar asked, his voice barely a whisper. Information. We want to know about every species your empire has gifted with technology. We want to know about your supply routes, your patrol schedules, your command structure. I will tell you nothing, Veltar declared, though his voice shook. Alex leaned back in his chair. That's fine. We already have most of the information from your memory cores, but I thought you might want to cooperate, considering what's about to happen. What do you mean? Alex activated another display, this one showing the Defiance's communication array sending signals across space. We're broadcasting everything that just happened on all Zephyrian communication frequencies. Every ship in your empire is learning that humans just disabled an entire diplomatic fleet without breaking a sweat. Veltar's face went pale. You cannot do this. You will start a war. Ambassador, the war started the moment you decided to treat humanity like grateful pets who should be happy with your table scraps. You just didn't know it yet. Meanwhile, in the far reaches of Zephyrian space, Fleet Admiral Krell received the emergency transmission from the Sol system. He watched the recorded footage of human weapons cutting through Zephyrian shields and ships moving with impossible speed and agility. How many ships do they have? He asked his intelligence officer. Unknown, sir. The transmission shows only one vessel, but there could be others. Krell studied the tactical data. One ship disabled an entire diplomatic fleet. If they have more vessels with these capabilities... Sir, we're receiving reports from other systems. Some of our client species are refusing their scheduled gift deliveries. They're demanding to speak with humans instead. The Admiral's face hardened with determination. Assemble the third battle fleet, every available ship. We will crush this human rebellion before it spreads further. How many ships, sir? All of them. 200 vessels should be sufficient to deal with any number of human ships. Back in the Sol system, Captain Jake Morrison received word that the Zephyrian fleet was mobilizing. He stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching as Earth's defensive fleet took position around the planet. Admiral Hansen, we're receiving a transmission from Zephyrian High Command, reported the communications officer. Put it through, Hansen replied from Earth. The display showed Fleet Admiral Krell in his elaborate uniform, his expression cold with fury. Humans of Earth, you have committed an act of war against the Zephyrian Empire. Surrender immediately, and your punishment will be limited to the destruction of your space capabilities. Resist, and your entire species will be eliminated. Admiral Hansen stepped forward. Admiral Krell, humanity rejects your ultimatum. We will not surrender, and we will not be eliminated. You gave us the tools to defend ourselves, and we intend to use them. You have one vessel built from our discarded scraps. I am bringing 200 warships to destroy you. Hansen smiled grimly. Admiral, you're making the same mistake your ambassador made. You're underestimating humanity. We look forward to showing you what we've accomplished with your generous gifts. The transmission ended, leaving the Sol system to prepare for the greatest battle in human history. In the asteroid belt, final preparations were being made for a confrontation that would determine the fate of not just humanity, but every species in the galaxy that had ever been ground under the heel of Zephyrian arrogance. The hunters had become the hunted, and they were about to learn why underestimating humanity was the biggest mistake they could ever make. The massive alien ships appeared above Earth on a Tuesday morning in 2387, their sleek silver hulls gleaming against the black of space. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the fleet through the thick glass windows. The ships were beautiful in a way that made human vessels look like old tin cans. Jake had served in the Earth Defense Force for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The alien ships moved without any visible engines, gliding through space as if they owned it, which, Jake thought grimly, they probably did. "Sir, incoming transmission from the lead vessel," reported Lieutenant Sam Parker from the communications. "Console." "Put it through," Jake said, straightening his uniform. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a tall alien with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes. The creature wore elaborate robes that seemed to shift color in the light. When it spoke, the words came through the translation system in perfect English. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire. We come in peace and friendship." Jake stepped forward. "Welcome to our system, Ambassador. I'm Captain Morrison of the Earth Defense Force." Veltar's mouth curved in what might have been a smile, though it looked more like a sneer to Jake. "Captain Morrison, we have traveled far to bring your species a great gift. The Zephyrian Empire believes in helping younger civilizations reach their potential." "That's very generous of you," Jake replied, though something in the alien's tone made his skin crawl. "We have brought technological artifacts that will help your people advance. Please prepare your largest cargo facility to receive our gifts." Jake glanced at Chief Engineer Lisa Bryant, who had joined him on the observation deck. Lisa was one of the smartest people he knew, and right now she looked suspicious. "What kind of artifacts?" Lisa asked. Veltar's expression didn't change. "Materials from our advanced civilization. Your people will find them most educational. Over the next 3 hours, the Zephyrian ships began unloading their cargo at the Luna shipyards. Jake and Lisa watched from the control room as massive containers were transferred to the human facility. Each container was the size of a building. "This is incredible," said Dr. Nina Cross, the head of Luna Station's research division. "First contact, and they're sharing technology with us." Lisa frowned as she watched the cargo transfer. "Something doesn't feel right about this. Admiral Roy Hansen arrived from Earth that evening to oversee the situation. He was a stern man with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Jake had served under Hansen for years and respected him greatly. "What's our status, Captain?" Hansen asked as soon as he stepped off the transport. "The aliens finished their transfer 2 hours ago," Jake reported. "They left without much ceremony, said they had other systems to visit." "And the cargo?" "We haven't opened the containers yet. Waiting for your orders, sir." Hansen nodded. "Let's take a look at these gifts." The team gathered in the main cargo bay, where the alien containers sat like giant metal boxes. The containers were made of some kind of silver metal that seemed to absorb light. There were no visible locks or opening mechanisms. "How do we open them?" Jake wondered aloud. Lisa ran her hands along the surface of the nearest container. "There," she said, finding a small depression. When she pressed it, the container split open with a soft hiss. Jake stared at the contents. "You've got to be kidding me!" Inside the container was twisted metal, broken pieces of what looked like machinery, and chunks of burned material. It looked like the aftermath of an explosion in a junkyard. "This is garbage," Dr. Cross said, her voice flat with disappointment. They opened the other containers. Each one contained more of the same: broken metal, damaged components, and pieces of what might once have been ship parts. Some pieces were melted. Others were cracked or torn. Admiral Hansen's face grew red with anger. "They gave us their trash." "It's an insult," Jake agreed. "They're treating us like we're primitives who should be grateful for their scraps." But Lisa had picked up a piece of the twisted metal and was examining it closely. The metal was lighter than it should have been for its size, and it had an odd shimmer to it. "Maybe," she said slowly. "But look at this material. I've never seen anything like it." "It's broken junk, Lisa," Jake said. "Broken advanced junk," Lisa corrected. "This metal is incredible. Look how light it is, but feel how strong it is. And this component here, it's some kind of energy conductor. Even damaged, it's more efficient than anything we have." Dr. Cross joined Lisa in examining the debris. "She's right. These materials are far beyond our current technology. Even in this condition, they could teach us a lot." Admiral Hansen looked thoughtful. "How much could we learn from this?" "Hard to say without proper analysis," Lisa replied. "But if we could figure out how these materials work, how they're made, it could advance our technology by decades. Or centuries," Dr. Cross added. Jake watched as more members of the engineering team began examining the alien debris. Their initial disappointment was giving way to curiosity and excitement. "The aliens probably expected us to be grateful," Jake said. "They dumped their old junk on us and expect us to thank them for it." "Which is exactly what we're going to do," Admiral Hansen said with a slight smile. "Captain Morrison, send a message to Ambassador Veltar. Thank him for the generous gifts and assure him that humanity appreciates the Zephyrian Empire's friendship." "Sir?" "Meanwhile, I'm authorizing a classified project. Dr. Cross, I want your best people studying every piece of this debris. Find out how it works, what it's made of, and how we can use it." Lisa grinned. "What are we calling this project?" "Project Forge," Hansen replied. "Because we're going to take their scrap metal and forge it into something they never expected." As the team began cataloging the alien debris, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that the Zephyrians had made a serious mistake. They had looked at humanity and seen a primitive species that could be easily impressed with garbage. But humans had a talent for taking broken things and making them work better than before. The Zephyrians had given them wreckage, expecting gratitude and dependence. Instead, they had given humanity the keys to technologies beyond their wildest dreams. And Jake had a feeling that the aliens were going to regret their generosity very soon. In the depths of the Luna facility, as scientists and engineers began their work, the first pieces of an impossible puzzle were being assembled. The Zephyrians had ruled the galaxy for centuries, secure in their technological superiority. They had never encountered a species quite like humans before. They were about to learn why that was a problem. 2 years had passed since the Zephyrians left their wreckage at Luna Station. In the hidden construction bay beneath Titan's surface, something impossible was taking shape. The UES Defiance hung in the massive facility like a sleeping giant, ready to wake up and change the galaxy forever. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation platform, watching the final work crews attach the last weapon systems to the ship's hull. The Defiance looked nothing like any vessel ever built by humans or aliens. Where Zephyrian ships were smooth and curved, the Defiance was angular and sharp. Where human ships were bulky and functional, the Defiance was sleek and deadly. "She's beautiful," said Chief Designer Tony Garcia, joining Jake on the platform. "She's terrifying," Jake replied, but he was smiling. "I've never seen anything like her." Tony nodded with pride. "That's because there's never been anything like her. We took the best of both technologies and created something entirely new." The Defiance was 800 meters long, with a hull made from Zephyrian materials that had been reshaped using human manufacturing techniques. The result was armor that was lighter than steel, but stronger than anything either species had created alone. The ship's angular design helped deflect energy weapons, while hidden weapon ports could unleash devastating firepower when needed. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Adams climbed up to the platform, her hands dirty from working on the weapons systems. "The main railguns are finely calibrated," she announced. "Want to hear something crazy? These enhanced projectiles are traveling at 30% the speed of light." "That's impossible," Tony said. Tell that to the test targets, Beth grinned. We've been firing into asteroids all week. The projectiles don't just punch holes, they completely vaporize anything they hit. Jake whistled low. What about the alien energy weapons? Even better. We figured out how to combine their energy technology with our targeting systems. The result is weapons that can track and hit targets that are millions of kilometers away. Beth pulled up a display on her tablet. Look at this test footage. The video showed a small target drone moving erratically through space. Suddenly, a beam of brilliant blue light reached out from off-screen and struck the drone. The target simply vanished. The beam tracked the target through 17 course changes, Beth explained. The Zephyrian weapons were powerful but not very smart. Our targeting computers make them deadly accurate. Dr. Nina Cross emerged from a maintenance hatch, her uniform covered in grease. The computer systems are online and running perfectly, she reported. We've integrated human artificial intelligence with Zephyrian processing power. The ship can think faster than any crew could react. How much faster? Jake asked. The ship can calculate and execute combat maneuvers in microseconds. It can track hundreds of targets simultaneously and prioritize threats automatically. Nina wiped her hands on a towel. In a battle, the Defiance will be like a chess master playing against children. Katie Mills called out from across the bay, where she was making final adjustments to the drive system. Hybrid propulsion is ready for full testing. We're going to blow their minds with how fast this thing can move. The hybrid drive was Katie's masterpiece. She had taken the Zephyrian gravity manipulation technology and combined it with human nuclear pulse engines. The result was a propulsion system that could accelerate the ship to incredible speeds while remaining completely silent and nearly invisible to sensors. How fast can she go? Tony asked. In normal space, about 60% light speed, Katie replied. But the really impressive part is maneuverability. The gravity manipulators let us change direction instantly without the crew feeling any acceleration forces. We can literally stop on a dime and reverse course. Admiral Hansen arrived for the final inspection, accompanied by Dr. Cross and Commander Alex Rivers. The Admiral looked tired but satisfied as he surveyed the completed vessel. Status report, he requested. All systems are operational, Jake reported. Weapons, engines, life. Support! Everything is ready for space trials. The crew? Hansen asked. Volunteers from across the Earth Defense Force. Everyone knows this is a one-way mission if things go wrong, but we had 3 times more volunteers than we needed. Alex Rivers pulled up a tactical display. Sir, we've had another breakthrough. With the intelligence data, we found the location of a major Zephyrian supply depot. The display showed a star system about 50 light-years from Earth. This facility supplies 3 different Zephyrian patrol fleets. It's heavily defended but strategically critical. What kind of defenses? Hansen asked. Automated defense platforms and a small garrison fleet, maybe 20 ships total. Alex highlighted different areas of the system. But here's the important part. The depot follows a predictable schedule. Supply convoys arrive every 30 standard days. Dr. Cross nodded. The memory cores showed us their entire logistics network. They've been using the same routes and schedules for decades. They never change because no one has ever threatened them before. Hansen studied the information carefully. If we could hit this depot, it would cripple their operations in this entire sector. More than that, Alex continued, the intelligence suggests that a successful attack here would force them to recall ships from at least 6 other systems. It would cause chaos across their entire defensive network. But first, we need to test the ship, Jake pointed out. We've run simulations, but we won't know how she really performs until we get her into space. Hansen nodded. Agreed. Captain Morrison, you'll take the Defiance on her shakedown cruise tomorrow. Test all systems in the outer solar system, away from prying eyes. Yes, sir. What's our mission profile? Push her to her limits. Test the weapons, the engines, the defensive systems. I want to know exactly what this ship can do before we commit to any operations. The next morning, The Defiance lifted off from the hidden base on Titan. The ship rose silently into space, her hybrid engines producing no visible exhaust or energy signature. From the outside, she looked like a piece of space debris drifting away from the moon. Jake sat in the captain's chair, surrounded by displays showing every aspect of the ship's performance. His crew of 30 volunteers worked quietly at their stations, each one an expert in their field. "Take us to the edge of the solar system," Jake ordered. "Nice and easy." Engineer Pete Johnson activated the hybrid drive. Instead of the violent acceleration Jake expected, the ship simply began moving faster. There was no sensation of movement at all. "Speed?" Jake asked. "0.05 light speed and climbing," Pete reported. "No stress on the hull, no G-forces detected." "Incredible," whispered Navigator Carol White. "We're moving faster than anything humanity has ever built, and it feels like we're sitting still." They spent the next 6 hours testing every system on the ship. The weapons performed beyond expectations, easily destroying asteroid targets from impossible distances. The defensive systems adapted automatically to simulated attacks, creating overlapping shields that could stop anything the test computers could throw at them. "Time for the real test," Jake announced. "Combat maneuvers." What followed was a display of impossible physics. The Defiance twisted and turned through space like a dancer, changing direction instantly without any effect on the crew. The ship could accelerate to tremendous speeds, stop completely, and immediately accelerate in a different direction. "This isn't just a ship," said Weapons Officer Dan Tucker in amazement. "This is magic." "No," Jake corrected, watching the performance data stream across his displays. "This is what happens when human creativity meets alien technology. This is what happens when someone underestimates humanity." As they headed back toward Titan, Jake couldn't help but smile. The Zephyrians had given humanity their garbage, expecting gratitude and dependence. Instead, they had given them the tools to build something that could challenge the greatest military force in the galaxy. The Defiance was more than just a ship. She was proof that humans could take any technology, no matter how advanced, and make it better. She was a message to the galaxy that humanity would not be anyone's grateful client species. Most importantly, she was ready for war.